Well, hello, the higher view. Today we have Cindy Stewart with us. I know a bunch of you have been really excited about that. And we're going to hear from her. She's got a lot going on. She's absolutely amazing. Everything from apostle and operating in the prophetic to business to author to coach to everything under the sun. So definitely take this opportunity. Make sure you get your questions in the comments. We will be monitoring those throughout the interview. But I'm really interested today. We also have Steph with us today about the topic of women in business and championing women in business. So all of you entrepreneurs out there, all of you business leaders out there, definitely tune in. And like I said, this is your opportunity to ask some questions one-on-one. Don't miss it.
Yes. So Cindy, it's so great to have you here. I know you and I met a couple years ago in Arizona at Women on the Front Lines, and I had an opportunity to go to one of the breakout sessions that you spoke at. And my heart just leaped when I heard you communicate. You have such a passion for calling people into their next level of assignments. And so Melissa gave the great introduction of all the different things that you were doing, but mostly it's to champion women in pursuing who God has called them to be. So why don't you share with these women just a little bit about your background, and then let's see where the Spirit just kind of leads this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with other strong, amazing women. And what I love seeing is the comments that'll come up are people that God is really stirring to that next level, to that higher level. And it's being able to connect everybody to the place that God has for them. But anyhow, I started in business by my dad. He trained me and my siblings since I was a little kid. We used to sit and listen to him. He was a successful businessman, and we used to sit and listen to all of his business, challenges, breakthroughs that he had. His friends would come over that were also business people, and we got to sit around the table and listen to him talk. Now, we couldn't say anything. We were just little kids. But then afterwards, it was almost like our own little personal debrief. Wow. So my dad was a great mentor. He was determined that all of us would go into business. So that's what I did. And I've been in business all my life and have loved it. And my real passion is to see people find the thing that they do well. Sometimes as I, ran companies and did things like that, sometimes you have this great employee, but they're doing an awful job. And it's because they're not in the right position.
That's
and
good.
Being able to shift into the right position. So I've done that for probably about 30 plus years. And then God called me into ministry. And I'm like, that wasn't on my list. When he called me to get ordained, I was like, I didn't even know if women could be ordained.
Wow.
Because I was brought up Baptist. So I had to go through a whole kind of a rewriting of what I learned in comparison to what the word actually says.
Yeah.
And so I got into ministry, and my husband and I started a church about 8 years ago, and we've moved into an apostolic center, which again is raising people up into the position they're supposed to be in, and then launching them, helping them launch churches and ministries and businesses. We love to help people start businesses so that we can see our economy be in the position God has for it.
What's really cool is I'm so stuck on the fact that after these as children, after these business meetings that your dad would have, that he would actually do this, debriefing with you, like training you. So the scripture, train up a child in the way you should go. It's, so many people, I think, pigeonhole that as, train your child up as a believer, but in the way he should go. There's so much more to us than just being a believer, right? And our gifts and our purposes and our calls and throughout scripture, starting all the way back to Abraham, they raised their children in their trade, right? To give them tools and stuff. And so I just thought that was really an amazing tip if people would grab a hold of it to actually, whether it's you're in business or you're in whatever kind of leadership or a pastor or whatever, to actually impart that wisdom to your children at an early age, at a level, obviously, that they'll be able to receive and understand. But instead of just, sending them off to kindergarten through 12th grade to get a, quote unquote education, to do that actual hands-on trade education right at the kitchen table is so impressive. And then I see it repeated really in you, and the fact that you have a passion to raise up others. Obviously they're adults, but you're raising up businesses, you're raising up ministries. And just that one nugget right there, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope everybody grabbed a hold of that, because that's legacy, that's generational. That one little thing right there, that one little seed put into play right there is powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, and it's interesting because your children, as long as you don't force them to do exactly what you've done, you train them. Your children, like my daughter has a business and she has employees and, very successful. My son and his wife are pastors of a church, but they both have great leadership skills. So you kind of share what you know, and then they glean what will fit right for them.
Yeah, I love that.
We even did that when they were teenagers. We made them do Dave Ramsey. Do you know what that is? The financial piece.
Oh, yeah.
They are great financial people, for their families, for their spouses, because they learn from the very beginning about debt, about credit cards, about how to buy a house, the whole 9 yards. And it's amazing to see them do a lot better than we did when we were their age.
Right.
That's supposed to be the goal, right? Stand on our shoulders, go higher, go further.
I mean, I remember when I was in sixth grade, and my parents, unfortunately, they got divorced. So we had a certain amount of income that my brother and I were able to receive from each parent when we were with one or the other. And we had to put together a budget. We had $150 as an 11-year-old, and we had to decide, where are we putting this money? And it has trained me from this day to be very budget focused. And hey, if we don't have this money to go over here, then we can't do this. And so, don't limit your children's possibilities and their intellect because of what you think they're capable of, because they're actually capable of more than what you probably think.
Yeah. And I have an interesting question just popped into mind. Considering that you're raising up businesses and ministries, there's a business budget, financial aspect to ministries that have to be managed also. And in this time right now with the whole COVID thing, and we're hearing about, all these small businesses and whatnot, not even sure if they're going to be able to, open their doors again. And, a lot of these businesses, a lot of ministries are operating, kind of day to day, month to month, paycheck to paycheck, if you will.
Right.
And what would you say on that? Like, as somebody's wanting to become an entrepreneur or going into business, how do you address that in a proactive manner so that they don't find themselves in the situation of, a government shutdown? We hear about government shutdowns, right? I've grown up hearing about government shutdowns, and you think that just affects the people that are working in the courthouse, right? We never fathomed that it would actually shut down small businesses and ministries and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was just actually thinking about that this morning because, whether this is the first time we as Americans have had a government shutdown, but if you think about it, we have had economic downturns.
Right.
Like in 2008, we had a huge economic downturn, which closed businesses, which, affected families. People lost their houses. But I was thinking about that this morning. And, one thing that's come out of this COVID is a lot of creativity. Just really looking at different ways, just like the distilleries are making hand sanitizers, people are manufacturing masks and selling them. So, part of it is, and I love to partner with God in things that are beyond my box. We all kind of live in a box and we get used to moving in that box, but, asking God to really build a new opportunity, a new way of seeing things. That's a big way, is because God will open up doors that you never thought would open. I mean, look at us now. How many of us would have planned to do Zoom meetings the way we've done them? I've done so many of them and just trying to operate every day. But now this is showing us different possibilities to be able to Zoom with people across the world and bring a conference without spending, $100,000 trying to make it happen. But on the business side of it, there's two elements. Part of starting your own business, it's a faith leap.
Mm-hmm.
You're stepping out in faith that you believe what you're offering, service, product, whatever it is going to be beneficial to the people who receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the faith. The other part is the very tangible, logistical part of how much money am I starting with? And not only am I looking for what is happening right now, but planning for possibilities.
Right.
We were in the fattest economy ever until 1st of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, we're all trying to scramble for business and keeping our lights on. So really, kind of, we live in the goodness of the Lord in this season, and we know that there's supernatural provisions that are coming in, even governmental provision.
Right.
But being a good steward of what you have and planning, living paycheck to paycheck is it happens with all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we take that extra? When I was growing up, 10% went to our church, 10% went to our savings account, and then we could spend the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to force ourselves when it's a tight budget. But if we don't force ourselves to save a little, then when things happen, we're not prepared to respond to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when I was in the financial industry as a VP in the financial industry back in 2007 and 8. So got to see firsthand, what was going on with the bubble and the crash and everything. And so many of my peers had, second and third homes and 5 and 6 cars. And, that's just what everybody was doing, right?
Everybody.
They were hawking their children and their second mortgages and the whole 9 yards to live very, very comfortably, extravagantly, really, is what it comes down to. And I think we just see that has been for quite a few decades almost like the norm in America to try to live extravagantly versus, traveling around the world, you get a really good eye opener on what their version of comfortable is, right? Mm-hmm. Versus what we think comfortable is. And unfortunately, back then, my husband, who was in law enforcement and a totally not entrepreneurial mindset and came from a ministry family that lived very conservatively, we weren't in debt and had everything paid off, and so actually it didn't affect us at all. We were able to go through it. I have an interesting testimony around that makes me look really dingy, but we were able to go through it without even realizing what was going on per se. I mean, obviously I was in the industry, so we had people coming in and I knew what was going on, but it didn't cause a bump for us. And then I'm just thinking about, this repeat that we're seeing really, in the markets, and those that lived with a good plan, and those businesses that actually have that cushion to be able to continue and function and extend exceedingly large amount of grace to employees. Even a lot of these companies are actually still paying their employees. And actually, I'm just gonna. I don't have permission to share this, but I'm going to. Kim, one of our directors, was talking to her son and daughter-in-law a few weeks back, who were continuing to pay for I believe it was the nanny and the housekeeper, even though they couldn't come do their job, because they had planned well. We don't ever plan for something like this to happen. Like nobody would have seen, oh yes, this virus is going to come and attack the world. But we always have to plan for downturns, even if it's just a personal downturn. And I think just the testimony of stewardship, you kept mentioning stewardship, and that just hit me for business, for the women out there that have an entrepreneurial call or in the midst of running a business. I just think this season is such an important season to grab a hold of the concept of stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
And, going back to like what you were saying, and you tithe your 10%. The Jewish standard is, you tithe your 10%, you have your self tithe of 10%, and you actually put away 10% for the poor. So that's 30% of your income that's set aside. But they're some of the best business people and wealthiest little nation in the world. So there's got to be something to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and
when you're doing your coaching, are you going over that kind of stuff and helping them?
I do. And it depends on what kind of coaching. I do business consulting. So I have my business clients that we work through those processes of whatever their objective is, whether it's greater sales, personnel, that type of thing. And then I have my coaching clients, and depending on what I've got some entrepreneurs that have started business or in the process of laying out their blueprints so they can get their ministry started or their business started. And really, some of them specifically want to leave their full-time job in order to move into this. And, that takes some planning. And basically, many of us, I'm sure you guys have worked 2 jobs till you've got the one that you're passionate about off the ground enough where you can take the step of faith out and quit your other job. So, that takes a lot of budgeting, a lot of planning, and a lot of blueprinting of what is it going to look like? How do I do it? And then developing a step-by-step plan. A business is built step by step.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I find that people have the vision of what they want to do, and then they have the vision of what it's going to look like, but they don't have the plan step by step of how to get from one place to the other. And that's the part I love, is just taking what is burning inside of them and what they've been able to see in front of them, and then let's tear it apart and start putting it together step by step. So every day you accomplish something towards your goal.
Yeah, that's so good.
So the following week, you've built another infrastructure for your business or your ministry or whatever it is you're passionate about. I love doing that.
That's so good. I was on the phone with my coach, which I always say, I think everybody needs to always be, reaching up towards a mentor or a coach, and then and behind you and pulling people along with you. But so I was on the phone with my coach the other day, and we were talking about the higher view. That's what she's really working with me on. And she started asking questions, and I didn't have answers to. And so I kind of got this vision, of somebody saying, well, what are you building? Well, I'm building a building. Okay. Well, what kind of building is it? I don't know. It's a building. Well, how many rooms is it? I don't know. It's a building. I'm building a building, and you really do. You have to, construct the whole, the architect has to build the whole blueprint, right? Otherwise, you can't just you might go to a contractor and say, hey, I need you to build me a building. And if that contractor goes and runs off and builds you a building, it might look like a tough shed, right? And because that's the only instruction. So good that you have that gift set to help people, kind of deconstruct their vision so you can, take it down into bite-sized pieces and the step-by-step. And because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are visionaries, they don't have the skill set to break it down. They have the big vision, that they have to have somebody come alongside them and actually teach them how to break that down step by step.
It's true. And what I find is the biggest stumbling block that people believe is they don't have enough time to do what they want to do. And on my website, I have a free downloadable time management worksheet that helps you. It's the most laborious, monotonous thing you could ever do. But when you realize how you actually spend your time, then you're able to make choices about, do I want to watch TV for an hour? If you do, that's okay. But if you don't, then what would you do instead? You know, it really allows you to put together a schedule that gives you pockets of time that you can work on the things that will get you to where you want to go. So I think time is the biggest lie that people believe, that they don't have enough time.
Yeah, and it takes that mindfulness, don't you think?
Yeah, it's mindfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
what you said about choices, because in everything it's a decision, you know, and then it's empowering them to consciously make those decisions instead of just, oh, I feel like I don't have time, so I don't have time, you know, bringing those things to the surface.
Yeah. And usually they don't have time because they haven't chose to be intentional about their time. Right. All of us, we, at the end of the day, we're like, where did the day go? Did I actually get anything accomplished? I mean, I do it, and I'm pretty time conscious, but you know, days just get away from us. And if we can really grab a hold of each day and plan, this is what I want my day to look like. It's not going to be perfect because we all have hiccups in our days, but at least there's an intentionality about, I've made the effort to make sure I make room for my kids, for my spouse, for my business, you know, for myself to go run around the block 3 times or, you know, whatever I can fit in. Because we can get more done than we think we can without being overly stressed.
For sure.
Well,
yeah,
and don't you think
that intentionality, like you said.
Yeah, and don't you think it also has to do with setting consistent office hours? You know, and working with artists, it's like, okay, so set aside, like, you're going to work in the office 1 to 3, and whether or not you get there, that's obviously up to you. But having that kind of in your mind, so when you start showing up, you're showing up to work. And then what you do in that time is obviously based on the choice and decision you make, but at least you're putting that kind of into practice so that you're training your brain to say, okay, this is my office work schedule, that I am showing up and I'm going to try to do what it is I'm setting out to do, because consistency and follow through is huge.
Oh, it is. It really is. And, you know, I learned this thing, and it's so stupid. I learned it probably 5 years ago. It wasn't like I learned it 20 years ago. I wish I had. But I did this little class with someone, and they're like, everything that you think, oh, I'll do that later, just do it now.
Right.
And you will be amazed at all the things you get done and the things that aren't forgotten because you just went ahead and did it. From everything from, I'll take my shoes back to my room now, as opposed to leaving them in the corner, or to, you know, I'll go ahead and unload the dishwasher. I'm going to go ahead and make that call right now instead of at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or tomorrow when I finally get around to it. There was something about getting in the habit of immediacy when it comes to me that has made me so much more productive. And I just feel like, gosh, I get so much more done because I'm not putting it off. I'm just going ahead and doing it.
That is so powerful, because it's like the Lord brings things to our mind at that time for a reason, you know? And so it's not discounting what he is bringing to mind. It's like, okay, maybe it's a little thing like put your shoes in your room, but he brought it to mind for a reason. And or reach out to that person. Well, you don't know what's going on in that person's life, and you know, but reaching out to them right then instead of, oh yeah, I want to connect with them, let me schedule that for next week. Just oh, well, maybe I should reach out today. Yeah.
Right. Can we teach our husbands how to do that?
My husband does do that. I'm probably the one that's a little bit more, well, I'll do that later, you know. So my husband, I should have learned from him, but instead I learned it in a little workshop I was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is miraculous.
Wow. And sometimes like, yeah, you should have learned this. That's because actually I was thinking the same thing when she was speaking. I was like, okay, Lord, you know, some of us can be so structural and time management planner type thing that it's like, okay, well, between this time and this time, I'm doing this. So if something comes to mind, you know, writing it down. And then I'm like, wow, am I like trying to organize God? You know what I mean? Because it was like, you know, if
sometimes
why not lean more into what Holy Spirit might be suggesting, as small as, you know, taking your shoes to your closet or, you know, or whatever, and learn to lean in and flow more with him. So I can see both ends. You can see somebody, you know, hugely procrastinates and then they've, you know, got a disaster that they have to deal with later, or somebody on the other end of the spectrum that's so, you know, boom, 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 organized, that they can just kind of like really organize the spiritual flow right out of their day.
There's a book title, How to Organize God. That's, you know.
Yeah.
I always tell everybody he loves my help. I have lots of suggestions. I have a lot of good ideas. And, you know, sometimes he's like, yeah, we'll go with it. And then sometimes I just don't hear anything.
Yeah. But isn't that awesome though? I mean, isn't that so much like when we've got, you know, like a 5-year-old or something,
Yes.
and they just have all these amazing ideas and they think that they're helping you, and, you know, like in the kitchen or something.
Right.
Oh dear Lord, I hope these curry muffins turn out okay. You know, they just had this great idea to throw, you know, cayenne pepper in them or whatever. That's I think sometimes, you know, how the Lord looks at us as we're trying to help him build something. That's hilarious. Total rabbit trail there. But anyway, so Cindy, what do you think right now as people are coming to you, business or otherwise, what are you finding that they're coming to you with the biggest challenge right now?
I think one of the challenges we're running into just in general is people question what they've heard from God because it doesn't look like in this season what they thought it would look like. And they're like, why, you know, if God told me yes on this, he would have known about the pandemic. So did I hear wrong? Did I misstep? Did I miss something? And that's where we have to realize that God will build a bridge over what has happened. He will restore what is lost. And when we go back and start saying it questions, it starts breaking down our whole connection with God. Because you just have to trust that you heard, and he's going to work this out. And even if you didn't hear exactly and maybe step in a way, God is the God that covers our mistakes. You know, he will help us make up for where we might have misstepped. You know, I mean, how many times have we heard something from God and we've taken a leap and then we've realized we should have leaped, but we should have taken 2 or 3 steps before we leaped.
Right.
You know, so sometimes it's that trusting and having faith in how God's leading you, even though it doesn't look like what you thought it was going to look. You know, all of us did budgets who have businesses. This is what our sales are going to look like this year. Well, they were up until March 15th.
Right.
Depending on where you are in the country. We're in Florida, so, you know, we got it a little bit later. I mean, it did until then, but it doesn't mean that all is lost.
Right.
You know, so that's probably the biggest challenge is people go back and start second guessing how God is guiding them.
Wow. What a tactic of the enemy, right?
Yes. Yeah, I believe that this really was a tactic of the enemy, because not only was our economy booming, but really we saw the word from the Lord was, this is going to be the biggest harvest ever. We're in a harvest season. Our economy's booming. And next thing you know, what's attacked? We're being locked in our houses, quarantined in our houses, and our finances are falling apart. So the 2 things that God was moving on began to unravel. But that doesn't mean God isn't going to fix it and restore it and bring it back to us.
Come on.
Yeah. You know, it's, of course, the enemy always overplays his hand. We know that. And all the way from, you know, let's even say the Passion of the Christ, right? Where he was like, yes, I won. You know, he was like, had that, you know, momentary celebration. And actually, what happened was exponential multiplication. You know, he thought he got rid of, you know, one Jesus, and now he's got, you know, millions or billions, and then, you know, 9/11, you know, utter, you know, we thought, oh my gosh, utter destruction. Life as we know it is never going to be the same. And it hasn't. It's changed significantly. But right after that, the unity that happened, not just in this nation, it affected the globe. It was definitely, you know, global, was absolutely amazing. I think it's a shame that we lost that. But I'm kind of seeing the same thing already happening now. And not to be Pollyanna about this, but our nation particularly has been so divided, like not even passionately, vehemently divided on so many things. And this crisis that's happening, I'm actually seeing some unity starting to come together. You know, there's even celebrities that are coming out going, the virus doesn't care what side of the aisle you voted on.
Right.
You know, and that whole thing, we're in this together. You know, however, you know, people want to look at it, there's an element of unity to that, that I'm like, okay, Lord, this is, you know, yes, there's been this downturn, there's been this, you know, trauma or whatever that's, you know, happened in so many lives. And yet I can already see how he's bringing it back around. And I just think the more that we have eyes to see and ears to hear that and can partner with that, that we're going to have the type of unity that happened, you know, the post 9/11 unity, but it's not going to just be this explosion. It's actually this kind of healthier growing together. That I'm really trusting that fabric is actually going to not ravel away as quick as 9/11 did. Honestly, it's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and really, when you think about it, everyone is experiencing a level of the same thing.
Yeah,
we're all experiencing separation. There's people we long to see that we can't see. We're separated from work, except for, you know, a few essential businesses. Separated from church, like our church just started back the 1st of May. So there's so much separation of community. Yeah, and there's a whole new empathy for one another. There's a whole new, how are you doing? You know, we walk, my husband and I walk a lot, and we're getting to know our neighbors better because they're all outside. And they're just all outside. We live in a little neighborhood, and our community, we live in the city. We're in St. Pete, in Florida. So it's a much more, walk versus ride type of a city. So everybody's out. We were downtown on Saturday, and people were getting their lunch to go and bringing their lawn chairs and putting them out on the sidewalks.
I've got goosebumps.
So we can all be together. So I think you're right. There's such unity because we have such empathy for one another, and realizing that I'm looking across the street, the neighbor across, and he's sitting in his yard, I'm sitting in my yard, and nobody's sitting in the middle because we're trying to social distance. So that unity is going to be powerful across political parties, across religious parties. We're all in this together.
Yeah, for sure. That's, you know, I think we were so busy before, and of course this is obviously a forced can't be busy anymore situation. Although I'm busier than I was before, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But you know, I'll go to the grocery store, and usually you go to the grocery store, you're getting in, you're getting out, nobody's paying attention to anybody. You might say, excuse me, because you're trying to reach over to get something or whatever. But now it's like people are looking for eye contact and a smile, you know, like, hi, how are you? You know, because they're missing that, you know, that contact. I feel so bad for all like the huggers and the touchers out there, you know, that are just coming out of their skin. And
my husband's, he's like, I'm good. I'm like, oh, that extrovert in me it's so hard. It
is. And I think that it's just bringing more of an awareness of community, awareness of the need for contact, you know, whether it's physical contact or, you know, eyeball contact, you know,
it's healthy community. Like I think we have been so unhealthy the way that we have done community. It's like, if you believe what I believe, well, then I'm going to partner with you in this. But if you don't believe what I believe, then I'm not going to have anything to do with you on this. And it's literally like converging the communities together, because we are all in this together. And empathy is a huge thing that the Lord is giving us as a gift on how to have empathy for our brothers and sisters that may not believe what we believe, or may not, you know, follow the same political party or whatever. It's like, this is that's out of the question. Like, we are all humankind. We are all part of the human race. So we have that in common. So let's rejoice in that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it was a few years ago that the Lord started working with me on being intentional on like eye contact, just eye contact and smile. And it was, I couldn't decide if it was sad or funny, how incredibly uncomfortable people or shocked. You know, I mean, usually I'll never forget, like I went up to grab my thing at the Starbucks window and made that intentional eye contact and smiled when I greeted her. And you could see like this moment of, what do I do? And then it was like, oh, you know, and it was just
awkward.
So interesting because we're all on this cell phone, you know, and the screen in front of our face. And yet now everybody's, you know, starving for that. But I think it's a great lesson that we really do need to not just glance at somebody or just you barely notice them when you're saying excuse me or hi or whatever, but like that intentional look in their eyeball, smile when you say something would literally like make this huge difference in somebody. And I thought, oh my gosh, how sad that as a society we're starving that much for even the slight little, you know, interactions. And of course, we weren't under quarantine then. And so how much more important now, right? To just be able to make that eye contact, give that smile, even just a, you know, a hi. Doesn't have to be any, you know, if you're an introvert, you know, I know that that's already pushing you to do eye contact and smile. So I'm not saying have some huge, you know, conversation. They might be terrified they're going to make eye contact and smile with an extrovert and get pounced on. But it's safe. It's quarantine, social distancing. Now's your time to practice. But I think that's huge. And tying that back in kind of, I know we're rabbit trailing on some of these, but I also just feel that it's not in business, in ministry. What's that about, you guys? It's about providing a service or a product, right? And I know Rabbi Lathan's really big on this, but it is that element of community and connection that makes your service or product more excellent than somebody else's.
Absolutely.
You know. So, I mean, to me, for those women that are thinking about going into business, or how do they survive this, or how do they stay, or to add that element of connection to their service or product that most aren't doing right now. You know, I think Pedro Adeo is like, you know, outlove your competition, right? Or outserve your competition. And that's just so true.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, what's interesting when you think about it, sometimes we get so tied up in the product that we forget we developed the product for a person. You know, we've developed the product. So, you know, whether it's hair dye, so they can look, they want their gray colored or whatever it is, turn blue instead of, you know, red, you know, whatever it is, we develop it for someone to enhance what they do, their living area, whatever it is, their family life. So remembering that at the end of the buyer is someone who has invested in you because they believe from you they're going to grow, or they're going to be able to take that next step, or whatever it is. For me, it's someone's going to grow. They're going to take that next step. They're going to prepare for a promotion, whatever it is they're going to do. And remembering that it's harder to get a client back.
Oh gosh.
Once you've lost them. And, you know, it's actually harder to get a new client as opposed to really taking care of the clients you have. So appreciating who they are, appreciating what value they brought to your business, you know, just being able to continue to support them in the way that you can, in a way that has proper boundaries and all those good kind of things. For me, I think the Facebook and Instagram and all this, creates a lot of boundary issues when you've got people reaching out to you, talking to you, clients reaching out to you, trying to figure out how do we navigate and be professional, but also be friendly and also be engaging, but not spend 15 minutes one night, that's my family time, trying to answer 15 texts that someone gave me. I've run into that a little bit of being able to, and I don't know if you guys have, to create those healthy boundaries that say, I'm so glad that you're a part of what we're doing, but my time is from 9 to 2, or if you'd like to have some help, set up an appointment with me or something like that. So we're not trying to be all things to all people, because our phones are so alive in our hand all the time. So I don't know about the boundary situation, but it definitely is a challenge.
Boundaries, I think, have been a challenge for the past few generations. I think that the more access the generations have created, I remember back in the pager days, and you had to go find a phone. But the thinner the boundaries have become, and somebody on my leadership team was actually sharing the other day, because I have an issue with that. I'm like a huge boundaries person, and so my phone is not my lifeline. It does not get to have charge over my life. And it'll ring or text will go off or whatever. And, my kids used to be like, Mom, your phone's ringing. I'm like, it's okay. Nobody is going to die if I don't answer my phone. If I was like a neurosurgeon on call, that might be different. But, or the text messaging, going off. And most people that have a relationship with me, know that I'll get back to them when I can. But I mean, I'll leave my phone, go to the store and leave my phone, or lay it down and actually go have my time, out in the sun type of a thing, not with my phone on me. But so many people have grander issues of boundaries in their life. So it's not even a thought process to create boundaries around your phone or technology or whatever. But it's just such, I think, a healthy thing to sit and remember, businesses and people were really successful 30 years ago before they had smartphones in their hand. You can do it, and realize that it's a tool for you to use, not be used by.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm the same way. Like, my phone technically goes off between 5 and 6 o'clock. I don't actually turn it off, but if my kids call, that's different. But I don't do business calls after that time unless it's prearranged, because when I get done working, I have to reset. Take care of my family, cook dinner. Maybe we're going to go for a walk. Just whatever we're going to do. And I'm like you, I don't like to be tied to my phone, and people understand that, they know that. And I'm like you, I try to get back with them as soon as possible, but we've got to be able to set those boundaries and say, I don't check my Facebook Messenger and my DM on Instagram. I don't do all that. I do it once in the morning and once before I close down. I don't usually run through it unless, like, I was expecting something from Julie, so I, kept that open to glance at it. But we do have to keep our mental health in check. And being always available 24 hours a day is detrimental to our mental health.
Oh, for sure. Definitely mine.
Mine too. It is to everybody's, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah. My leadership team knows, like, I have a schedule, like, between, there's like 30 minutes of I'm available for messaging. I've got certain 15-minute times I'm available for, phone calls for certain people. But otherwise I won't check it, because I mean, some people might be absolutely beyond amazing at multitasking, or they think that they are. But for me, if I'm doing something and then I'm over here at my phone, and then, at this email or doing this, then I'm like, what was I just doing? And I literally have to, like, take time to backtrack a few steps and remember the path that I was on. And
productive.
and you just have to think, how much time let's accumulate that throughout the day, doing that 50 times throughout the day.
Right.
How much time did you actually waste because you were trying to multitask?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's the boundaries around your time. I think especially for entrepreneurs, I think what I've seen is that lack of really boundaries around an entrepreneur's time. Versus the corporate structure where you're clocking in 9 to 5, you got to lunch at 12, and this more structure. And an entrepreneur, that's all up to them, know. And I think they're carrying the weight of the world sometimes because it is all up to them. And if they are more the artsy, creative, that side of the brain person, probably structure really, really stretches them, and yet it's going to be like the saving grace, I think.
Yeah. I definitely think so too. And it's interesting. We all know when we're starting businesses, I don't know about you, Steph, but I know the rest of us, there are times that are more intensive, and you're going to have to spend an extra 4 hours or a Saturday, getting this drilled down so you can make a book deadline for the publisher or whatever that is. So there are times where you are spending 60 hours a week or 50 hours a week, but that can't be every week and be able to sustain any other kind of life.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we work on is, if you're married and you have kids, you have to get your family on board with what you're doing. So they can be your cheerleaders. They can really support you, encourage you, your inner circle of friends. This is what I'm doing. Pray for me, help me to have that strength to be able to do it. So building a team around you, whether they're active in the business or not, is another critical part, because they'll help you stay in check.
I have 4 kids, 5 and under.
Wow.
But one of the things that the Lord kept bringing up to me for the whole business thing and just parenting and everything is that He gives His beloved sleep. And so if we are, staying up late, rising up early, eating the bread of anxious toil, that's not Him. That's not His heart. And so even though there might be seasons that are more intense or more time spent on one thing than the other, it's still, He gives His beloved sleep. And He doesn't want us to do things out of anxiety, out of missing out, or if I don't stay up late and get this done, it's not going to happen. I think that's shutting off His spirit, that's saying, okay, it's all on me. You don't know what I'm doing. I have to take it into my own hands. But yeah, and that ties with everything, with being intentional, with boundaries, like all the things we've talked about. It all goes back to that. Do you trust the Lord? Do you trust that it's His and it's His business that He's given you to steward? Or is it your business? Are they His kids that you get to raise, or is it all on you?
It's okay.
Well, I mean, I think it's like, do you operate out of fear or faith? Are you afraid that if you don't do this, something's not going to happen? Or do you have faith that, hey, it may look different than what I think? One of the quotes that I love is, I'm not going to strive to make something happen, because if I have to strive, I'm going to have to strive to sustain it. And striving literally almost killed me. So I will not go into that performance mentality. When something checks in my spirit where, wait, this is operating in performance and not in your grace, we have to reevaluate. Something is off. Whether I'm going too far ahead of what you have for this time, or I didn't hear you correctly, but we have to be honest with ourselves and say, we give ourselves permission to step back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And then I think that's part of this whole learning how to partner with God and following the Holy Spirit. And it's, it's trial and error. We're not perfect. We're growing, we're journeying with God as we go, but it's that partnership, knowing that He will open the door that's supposed to be open. That's what His word says. Whatever door is supposed to be open, He will open. Whatever door is supposed to be closed, He will close. And just praying every day, God, line up my day. Help me to adjust to what your best is for my day to day. And if I need to rearrange something or add something, I'm glad to do it. Sometimes He'll do something so funky, like I'll have my day and I'm not an overly scheduled person, but there's like 2 days a week that I do most of my administrative and touch and base, and then I write and develop and create the other days. But, you know, sometimes he'll be like, I like to write first thing in the morning because I feel more free. You know, I haven't had a full day, but sometimes he'll be like, nope, don't do that. Do all this work. And then like at 2:00 in the afternoon, he's like, now, and I'm like, can I switch my brain that quickly? But you know what? Because he's directed it, it seems to flow easier that way. When my days are directed by him, it definitely seems to flow easier. So I start out my day, okay, what's on your heart? This is what it looks like to me. What does that actually look like to you? And let's put our brains together and do something wonderful. But it is a challenge to learn how to lean in to something, like you said earlier, Melissa, that's different than what you would have normally had planned.
Yeah, we just finished a book a month or so ago. We're getting ready to release just a small ebook to the group called Pivot. That's about, you know, how to pivot, how to go through change. And one thing that I'm just kind of curious about in the people in the lives that you're touching is I kind of see this time period, particularly with the small businesses, or this new call to entrepreneurs, which I think is just has to be God. We have a quarantine and a downturn, and he's making this call to entrepreneurs. That just has to be God. It's like I always joke around. I mean, only God would start a women's movement in the midst of a quarantine. But you know, okay. How many people lean into this time with an opportunity to recreate themselves, really, you know, recreate their business, recreate themselves, and look at it as this opportunity that God's saying, okay, let's do something new. Lean into me. This is really an amazing opportunity for your dreams to come true, if you will. You know, not to sound too woo out there, but he really can do that right now. And I'm just wondering, in the lives that you're touching, are you seeing more of the I'm just going to throw in the towel and give up, or the mindset of what's up? Can I recreate myself or my business or whatever? I'm just curious what you're seeing more of.
What I saw in the very, and you know, it's been like a little bit of a roller coaster. In the very beginning, people were like shocked. And trying to figure out, is this really something? Because even our government didn't know if it was really something. Then when they realized that quarantines were happening, business were closing, I saw people go into a little bit of, how did this happen? You know? But then after a few weeks, the rise started happening. Okay, so this is a reality. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but what I know is that it's an opportunity. Because I'm not working. The one challenge I have seen with a lot of young moms is trying to suddenly homeschool their kids. And that has been one of my friends. They have 6 kids. They just remarried, and so they have 6 kids between them. And all of a sudden you go from a full-time working in an office to 6 kids trying to find 6 computers or iPads or phones, you know, so that was definitely a little bit transition for that. But I've seen people asking, you know, what do I get rid of that was not really beneficial to my life? And do you have a new view for me to take a look at? I have seen people be more creative about their products. They've gotten more expansive in their products because the product that they have isn't beneficial right now, but they had a lot of other ideas that they've been able to test out. So I think it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, depending, you know, where you were. But I think I know that a lot of my people kind of hit the wall a little bit when they realize that there's quarantine and they can't have coffee with their friends or go out to dinner with their husband or their boyfriend or whatever. But then they started rising above it. You know, once they realize that it's a perfect opportunity to reinvent some of the things that weren't beneficial for me. So I am definitely seeing that change. And now people are like climbing the walls, ready to get out.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, I get messages all the time from people. Are we planning a conference? Are we planning? And I'm like, maybe a Zoom one, you know, because everybody's ready to get out together, come together, you know, and to have that interaction. And but I'm noticing, what I've noticed in various circles that I'm in are the ones that are pressing into this time in kind of more of a hopeful or proactive way. You know, and seeing the ability to recreate, or some of them are looking at the opportunity to rest, right? I'm jealous of them, but versus the people that are, and I do blame a lot of the media for this, but the people that are really plugged into news and media, and they're the doom and gloom, and nothing's going to be the same, but they're saying it in a negative way, and the market's never going to recover, and we're all going to be in bread lines, and half the world's going to die, and you know, and all of this kind of stuff. They don't have the excitement and the hope, and the health and the energy. It's just this paradigm, same exact situation. Everybody's locked in their house. You know, if you were to take two people, and I can think exactly of two people, they both lost their jobs and their income, stuck in their house, not sure what they're going to do. But one of them have like all this peace and joy about this time, and they're one of the resting people. They're like, oh my gosh, I've never felt so good. I'm so rested. I've had so much like crazy revelation from the Lord, because I have all this time, you know, with him, and all of this. And then the other person who's they're just absolutely miserable, and that's all they see is just misery. And the person that's really miserable, this is the other interesting thing that I've noticed, is their mindset is, when are we going to go back to normal?
And there's going to be not.
And I'm sitting here going, I don't want to go back there. I was like, that was awful, you know. And I'm so ready to see the new and exciting things.
Absolutely.
Developed out of this time. And we look back on any war time, any depression time, and all the inventions and the amazing stuff that came out of those times. It changed life as we know it, but in a really good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited. I already see new things. Now, we are going to have a little mini conference in June, but in Florida, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. Like we've already, you know, we're already, let's just say the hair salons are open. When that's open, we know everything.
Mine is not. Can we see? Can we
well,
tell?
Mine isn't until next week, you know. Yeah. So, so we are going to have a little conference, but I'm excited to see too, because what I see is a new breath of possibilities. You know, people are really able to say, God is moving, and we see that tangible move of God. And what he's doing is he's doing things that we haven't experienced before. So he's actually surprising us with what he's doing. And then all of a sudden you're like, how did that happen? And you know, it's God. It's this surprise from heaven. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see so many things that we haven't seen before, because God is moving in a way to gather his people and really launch them in the places they need to be. It's exciting. I love it.
I know. I am too. I'm totally excited. I'm so excited. Well,
so
thank you so much for coming on. And if you wouldn't mind praying us out and just
absolutely
go through this season of change, whatever Holy Spirit leads you to do.
Absolutely. So, Father, I just thank you that you have, I just keep hearing, you have so much more for us. That Ephesians 3:20, we have you have immeasurably more than we could ever imagine, more than we could ever dream, more than we could ever expect. And Lord, I am just counting on this outpouring of miracles and signs and wonders that's following all of this, that I am seeing people healed. I'm seeing people have this revelation of who you are like they've never had before, the deep calling unto deep. So God, just thank you for the depth of your love for us, and how we are not victims in this. We are coming out victors. We are strong. We are amazing. We have a message. We have a purpose, and we have a destiny. And we are going to transform the mountains, the business mountain, the government mountain, our family mountain. We're going to transform the mountains for the kingdom of God. So thank you, God, that right now heaven is invading earth. And there is a whole new wonder of who you are being released across the world. And we just thank you and bless you, and just give us more ability to see, engage, and encounter you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Cindy, where can people find you, find out about your conference, find out about your coaching, all that kind of stuff? Where can they find you?
It's on my website, cindy-stewart.com.
Awesome.
And it's a dash, not an underscore, cindy-stewart.com.
We'll
and everything
sure
you need is there.
Site.
Okay,
awesome.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. It was great meeting you.
So good to see you, Cindy. Thank
Bye.
you.